them are also part of middle class. It's not as if it's only those who are in the urban centers and only those who are in permanent jobs, either with the government or with some private sector. So middle class is something which we probably narrowly limit to only those urban, fully formally employed groups, for whom, of course, even during the budget and post that, we have linked to several steps of affordable housing and making sure that the income tax was completely reduced, and as a second alternative, a separate set of taxation rates was given, and an option being given. You want the exemptions, you please remain where you are. You don't want the exemptions, or you want a lower tax rate, you come over to this. That was done for the middle class. For the affordable housing, extended timing was given, and further extensions were also given for the middle class. So it's not right to say they're not in our radar at all. They are, and we are trying to do as much as we can in these difficult times.
Ma'am, foreign investment and ease of doing business is a priority. And in today's scenario, a lot is being said and acknowledged that foreign investment in India could increase given the geopolitical situation globally. But there are some areas that people express concerns, and I'd like to just share a few with your permission, ma'am. One is in terms of approvals. Earlier we had an FIPB. Now in terms of foreign direct investment, even though certain timelines are set in place, the corresponding ministries that have to send their comments, they may not necessarily be following a timeline. So there's lack of clarity in terms of timelines and approvals. Another example, some people feel that policy changes take place abruptly, which is they call for stability of policy, because they come with long-term assumptions when they make their investments. And the third is in terms of the fear of fraud, because the fourth C, which people worry about, is the court process. And as a lawyer, I must point out that given the issues with court, that people fear because if they are being let down by a business partner or an employee, the court process frightens them in India. So are there any points, any of these that are on the government's radar, the government is looking at, thinking of making facilitation for these kind
of? You're very right in saying departments which may have to clear the FDI proposals based on the policy may have to speed up. A lot of effort is going on it so that pendency is cleared and people get to knowing from the respective ministries in time. That is getting speeded up, and I will honestly say there's a lot of effort from the Prime Minister's level itself, following up on departments who have to do the clearance quickly. The second is about stability in policy. Stability in policy is a very important thing. I conceded this even at the beginning, saying fiscal incentives to invite industries to come and invest in India is one thing. But if you're not going to be able to simplify your compliance schedules, if there is no consistency in policy, if there is no certainty, the fear in the minds of the industrialists is, I've come in at a time when taxation is like this, that's fine by me. But the fear is in their minds, what if it changes like the way it changed during the UPA regime, and a retrospective tax is brought in? How will their business planning go forward? Won't it be thrown out of the window? So department speeding up, bringing stability of policy, ease of compliance is another. If you ask for one more form to get filled up, it obviously burdens many of them. So if anything, we have to reduce the burden of compliance, and that is another issue on which we can assure that the credibility and the credentials of Honorable Prime Minister is very high. He is somebody who believes in actual reform, and that is why ease of doing business, you see rapidly improving ranking at the global level for India, and that will continue from our side. And the last point on the courts, I agree, you know it much better than I do. We'll have to, that is why I think one of the things that we decided was even in the last tenure between 2014 and 19 was to establish commercial courts, at least benches in high court levels. So there are, and the NCLT, NCLAT are all things which are being improved by the day. We should have that issue sorted out at the earliest so that courts are not going to take time, nor are they burdened with excessive cases going to.
Permit me, Finance Minister, to just ask a supplementary to the ease of doing business and investment. Now, the real action is actually in the states, on the ground level. And local existing Indian entrepreneurs, because our focus is also in Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, local strengthening, but even new investors have to grapple with, deal with NOCs, permissions from municipal authorities, local authorities, various. And that is a lot of red tapeism. That is also a set of bottlenecks. So are we taking any steps to bring the states and these kind of authorities in line with the central government's approach towards ease of doing business and opening it up both for local and new investors?
No doubt there's a lot of engagement with the states, and through the states ensuring that the third tier, the local bodies, the urban local bodies and the municipalities are also understanding the importance that unless they gear up, make it easy for industries, make it easy for the investors, things won't move. Because at the state level, it can be a pollution control board, or it can be a local body which doesn't clear up, investment related papers. Even that becomes very difficult. And also if contracts have been signed and if agreements after being signed are reneged, even that can affect the credibility of India's business environment. So there is a lot of engagement from the center with the states on this.
A second question, ma'am, on the states is that in this economic problem that we are facing because of COVID-19, the states are also revenue challenged and are facing a fund crunch. Some of them are expressing that they've been left out broadly of the government's approach in the economic package. Is that a fair criticism?
It's completely untrue, and I don't accept that at all. Because, as much as all of us understand, the assumptions made in the budget are already in a state where we'll have to review them. Every assumption made for the budget of 2020 are now at a stage where unless I review them, they are not going to hold good. Notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding the fact that the revenue generation has suffered severely, revenues have come down, not just for the states, but also for the center, equally both for state and center. Notwithstanding these realities, I have devolved both in April and May, everything that I have to devolve as per the assumptions placed in the budget of February 2020. My situation is definitely different from the state in which I had made the budget. The assumptions then and the situation now are completely at variance. But because I recognize, and because Prime Minister Modi repeatedly recognizes and says it in so many of his consultation with the chief ministers, during the lockdown period itself, he's had 5 engagements with the chief ministers, each running to at least 3 to 4 hours. He's heard them all patiently. I'm not saying it in a patronizing tone. He's heard them and he always responds with this thought in mind that they are the ones who are in the front line fighting coronavirus. So, coming back to my budget point, the budgetary estimates, and as a result of which, the proportion that I had to go giving to the states on a monthly basis, I have released in April and released in May without any change based on the assumptions made then. But since then, my revenue generation has gone for a toss almost. But I've not used that as an excuse to say, sorry, I can't give you. Similarly, for dealing with the disaster relief, through the Home Ministry, the SDRF money, in which they have their righteous share. It's not as though we are giving them a favor. As per the formulation of the Finance Commission, whatever would be given to them steadily over the several months, or if there is any particular drought or flood, after the high-powered team goes to the states and checks up what is the level, that kind of a staggered payment which may happen of the SDRF each time, each year, this time has been given well in advance so that the money goes to the states, to their hands to handle this situation. Over and above this, Prime Minister announced a 15,000 crore package for health-related, COVID-related matters. Even that's getting distributed. Over and above this, the Health Ministry itself announced, if I remember correct, about 4,000 crores. That number is subject to correction, but they have also released from their end. So at least till today, despite my revenues coming down, I have not given scope for any reason to hold back money, but to go as per formula. In all this, the only thing I'm holding on is the compensation which has to be given to the states. December, January is due, February, March is due, because compensation says, and this is not something I'm saying for the first time, I stood in the parliament and said twice that as and when the collection comes in, I can release it. Last year itself, we gave much higher than what we had collected as a compensation through the cess. We gave much more than what we collected. And this year too, I can only give when the collection gives me the room for it.
Thank you, Finance Minister. Ma'am, I'm to ask a question that is related to a legacy approach. The legacy approach and hangover of the last 70 years is that government agencies tend to view, and that's a general statement, entrepreneurs, small business, traders, etc., MSME, the salaried class, to be generally those who want to evade taxes and have a dishonest approach. That's a legacy approach. Now, the government of the day, which is our government, is trying to change this approach, and this has been said on several occasions. But my question is, what steps and how can we ensure that agencies